You're listening to a podcast by Last Minute Crack with your host, me, Christina Hamilton. Last Minute Crack is your one-stop shop for all things arts and culture in Dublin City. For more information, check out our website at lastminutecrack.com or visit us on Instagram at lastminutecrack. A special thank you to Thibaut Kemoret for his help with the sound and for the music on this intro. Another thank you goes out to Zoe Spillane for her help managing the page. And now for your episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Last Minute Chats podcast with me, your host Christina. I hope you're having a really lovely day, and I'm so happy you're here with me so I can introduce my latest guest, Alex Byrne. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm so excited to have you today because we've been friends for a long time and we wanted to get you on this exclusive interview to talk to you about how you're doing. But first of all, for the people who don't know you, do you want to give it a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. How you doing, guys? Going to look into the camera for the video part. My name is Alex J. Byrne. I'm a comedy magician. Been going now since 2016. Been fortunate enough to kind of gig all around the world, really, North America, all around Europe and stuff like that. And just back from the Edinburgh Fringe Festival as well. Did my solo show Magic Mike at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival to a few solid audiences as well. So yeah, it's going pretty good.
I'm so excited. I've said excited now. If there's a drinking game out there, that's the 5th shot you've taken. So good luck to you. So let's start from the beginning. So like you're a comedian, but you also do magic. I mean, at what point did you kind of go, that's the two of them need to be together?
Right from the start, to be honest with you, because like as a boy, my favorite comedian was Tommy Cooper. Like Tommy, in my opinion, is my favorite comedian, but he's the best comedy magician ever as well, I think. But it's a case of that I'd watched it as a boy, and I was doing some acting courses when I was in my early 20s. some part-time courses in the Gaiety, not too far from here actually. Giving away the location now, spoiler.
You're doxing me right now.
We are in Dublin. You're gonna have the paparazzi outside now. But it's a case of I was doing some acting courses, and they were fine, but I didn't know kind of where to go, what to do, and a few people said to me, you should definitely try comedy. So that was in like 2016, like I said, I did my first gig, and then magic was always just kind of a small part. I was doing like one or two very kind of basic magic tricks before that, and I kind of worked them into the act, but as it's gone on from there, I just kept building and building, because I think it works kind of nicely, because I think comedy and music work well together, but I think comedy and magic work well together too, because it's something kind of different, and also if I manage the balls of a trick, people laugh, so it's a win-win.
Yeah, well, it's all about timing, really. So they both go together. But it must have been, so talk to me about your first performance, because I know from talking to comedians, going up and just trying to be funny is one thing. Trying to go up and be funny and do magic is completely different. Like, how did that go? How did you feel?
My first ever gig was awful.
Oh no!
I bombed so hard, like so hard, and it's actually it's funny. My first ever gig was in a place called Columbia Comedy Club down in Mullingar, which quick flex, I run the club down there.
Oh, cool.
I actually booked the acts and the host now, so I mean it's turned out all right in the end. But the first ever show that I did, my good friend Stephen dropped me down. He's like, I'll film you. You can have this. I was like, great. So we hooked his microphone up to the mic stand, and he was like, can you do a quick sound test? So I got up and I started going like, oh, 1 2 1 2 1 2. He's like, 1 2, and then I look, and all of a sudden the audience is kind of there, arms folded, kind of looking like, I don't understand what you're trying to do. And then the owner of the bar, well, the manager of the bar, a guy named Ross, he came up and he grabbed me, and Ross is like, look, you can't be messing. You're gonna have to ask you to leave, because he's never seen me before. And I was like, no, I'm a comedian. And what happened was, eventually we worked it out, and I went to get up on stage. I think I was like second or third on the bill, but literally as soon as I got up on stage, the whole audience in unison kind of sat back, folded their arms, and was like, oh, it's this guy. Oh. So yeah, I bombed hard.
Alex, that's awful. That's one of the worst.
And the worst part about the whole thing was, I said to me mate, how did the video turn out? He says, I can't hear you. I failed on every level that night.
But how did you pick yourself up from that? Because a lot of people will talk about how they like that they bombed, but nobody's really talked to me about in this much depth. Like, and how do you, especially for your first one, how do you pick yourself up from that?
It's difficult because it's kind of, you leave and you go, oh gosh, like, what am I going to do? Like, for example, when I was getting into comedy, I did the part-time course in the Gaiety School of Acting, like the comedy course with Danny Keogh, really good guy, and we kind of had like our showcase at the end, but that's all, friends and family, and everyone's like, you're great, so you're kind of like, oh, this is wonderful. But then when I consider Mullingar like my first proper gig I went out and got, I was just like, pff. So it's really difficult. Like, it's really kind of just like, because even now, like, you get a gig where you don't do well, and it's kind of like very, I suppose, very debilitating, like very kind of embarrassing. I'm like, God, this is terrible. Like, you drive out of some gigs like, why do I do this? But it's just all a case of, picking yourself up and going to the next gig, because you're working, like, get your next gig in, try and get back on stage, get the momentum back. And I know it sounds kind of cliche, but it's the only good thing to do. It's like being in sports, like, you have a bad game, go out and train, and then do your next game and do better. It's the only kind of way over it, I think, but it is a difficult thing to recover from.
Yeah, you have to keep pushing through, I think, is the idea. I mean, yeah. Oh my God, I can't imagine. I can't believe they tried to get you off the stage. Oh my God.
But the guy Ross who was kicking me out, he's the guy that basically, I'm good friends with him now. Like Columbia, like in Mullingar, it's kind of a unique club for me. It's given me a lot of opportunity because I've worked with Ross on a lot of stuff. Like, he gave me like my first spot there, first place I ever headlined, first place I ever MC'd, and first place I ever did my solo show. And now, like I said, I book it each week. So yeah, it's kind of gone 180. Ross is a good mate of mine, and like we're doing a lot of stuff together, which is a lot of fun. Okay, well, let's talk about, so what was the point where you were feeling like, okay, now we're trucking? You know what I mean? Like, what was the point where you were like, we're going now? You know what I mean? I suppose probably in around 2018, because again, it was in Mullingar where Ross and another fella used to run at the time, Ben Thompson, because I was just, doing the gigs, whatever, but for the first time, I got a message going, hey, we want you to close out because, people have asked for you a lot. Like, people really like your act. They've seen you. And I'm like, oh, it's nice to kind of get that recognition. And then, I suppose 2018, 2019, I was starting to do kind of more gigs where I kind of felt more in the groove. Then, of course, we had lockdown and stuff like that, 2 years, couldn't gig properly. And 2022, I was kind of just coming back into it. But it might sound silly, but a big one for me that kind of almost flipped the switch was I used to just like kind of wear like a hoodie and like a pair of trousers or even shorts on stage. Used to be my look at one point, but in 2022 I got a blazer, and it was like my navy and gold blazer, and I started wearing it, and people, I don't know, kind of took it more seriously, kind of looking, going, oh, okay, this guy, he's doing something. He's
that guy's got the glitter.
That's it. So like, I know it might sound silly, but like they kind of just changed in the mentality when I started wearing the jacket and stuff. That was a real kind of switch for me. So since 2022, it's just been a lot of good momentum. Like, started doing the kind of more gigs, kind of touring more around the country, started driving as well, so that was always a big help handy, too. Yeah. And just started doing festivals and stuff, and then so that was kind of coming back after lockdown, was kind of really like, okay, let's hit the ground running, let's just keep going.
Brilliant. Sorry, I was just like picturing you driving in my head for some reason. When I think of you, right, I always pair you and Kigo together because it feels like you're a perfect little, beautiful little set. Yes. You know what I mean? When did you meet him, and how did like that friendship kind of start up? I
first met Kigo back in when did we do that? It was 2021, I believe. He was putting together a thing called the Eargasm Festival that he did. And
of course, yep.
Oh, great name. Well, there was a few of us on doing the gig, and I first met Kigo, and like when I first met him, like I was kind of like, okay, I didn't really kind of talk to him that much. We were kind of working together, but then we did a gig in Bantry down at the start of 2022, and just really started to get on. Like, first time I proper chatted to him, I realized what a lovely, lovely guy, and I love kind of what he's doing. Like, he's gone out, he's creating his own thing, he's doing his own kind of work, and it's really, really good to see. Like, he's given me, good opportunity to work with him, and like I've worked with him too on different projects, which is great. But one thing that I always say with Kigo is, because obviously he wears the fancy blazers too.
Yeah, that's what brought me to him.
Great,
yeah.
But I always made the joke on stage that for years I was coasting by on a fancy blazer, but all of a sudden Kigo came along with a fancy blazer, and he was likable and had talent, and I just can't compete with that.
He is likable and he does have talent, but he also, I think it's the skinny jeans.
That's it.
It's probably the skinny jeans. Kigo, if you're out there, keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
Absolutely.
So from that moment in Mullingar to Edinburgh Fringe, like, talk to me. I've never been to Edinburgh Fringe. I have friends who've gone and performed or went to go see stuff. What's that experience like?
It's incredible. Like, I did Edinburgh Fringe for the first time back in 2022. I did a 3-person show with Jack McKenna, and then of course our good friend Betsy Spear. So we did our 3-person show over there, and that was great. It was like the first kind of experience that I had. Like, I knew nothing about Edinburgh Fringe. Like, when you go there for the first time, you don't know anything. Like, I was like, go in, do the show, and was just like, oh my god, what is all this?
It's chaotic.
It is so chaotic. And that was I think we had a 9-day run of the show, but then 2023, myself and Jack went back just for 2 days because we didn't get into the initial channels we applied to. But I know a guy who runs Gigging It Up, great company by the way. Mark Robertson runs that, really, really good guy. And he had us on for a couple of days doing a 2-person show, myself and Jack. But from around there, I was thinking, I might consider doing a solo show at some point. Like, this is the thought process. But actually, it was my mother actually inspired me to do a solo show. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. So I was playing with the idea of doing a solo show maybe in 2023, but I was so kind of nervous because I was like, I have the material. I was like, I don't know what I do. Like, my buddy Jack actually was great motivation. I was like, I think doing a solo show. And he was like, finally. I was like, really, you have so much stuff, you need to do it. But what happened was, my mom one day, I was she came in and she like left me this like gift bag thing, and I was like, oh, like I think it was September 2023, and I was like, strange, like my birthday was a month ago, it must be like a belated birthday present. And I opened it up, and it was a Summit machine, like, you know, the little card reader, and I was like, oh, I was like, that's very niche. Who all my relatives would know to get me like a Summit machine? And I opened the card, and it wasn't a birthday card, it was a congratulations card. And I was like, I opened it up, and it was like to Alex, congratulations on how far you've come in your comedy career. Keep going, love from Mam. And I went out to her, and I was like, you got me this, like, on the card? And she was like, yeah. She goes, well, I thought that if you did your own show, it would really help, and I thought it'd be a good thing for you to have. So straight away I looked at her and says, I'm going to do a solo show. Let's go. And I started writing it then.
Oh, stop. That's beautiful. I think again, for the drinking game for this game, for this podcast, it's about to talk about moms, but I think
they are the best.
They're the best. Like, I think when you have your mom's support in that way, like, you feel like you can do anything, you know?
Yeah, and I was actually saying to people recently, like, it is kind of a different level of fun because, like, you know, I got my friends' support, you know, I've got the comedian support, and it's really nice, but to have that from my mom, because, and this is true as well, for the first, I'm going to say 5 years I did comedy, she wouldn't come and see me.
Oh.
Didn't talk to me. And then one day I says to her, I was kind of annoyed. I was like, why aren't you talking to me about comedy? Like, it's important to me, and, you know, don't come and see me. And I thought it was a case she didn't support me doing it. But she said, no. She goes, the reason that I don't do this, she says, I'm so nervous because if you have a bad gig, it'll be upset. I don't want to see you upset because I know how much it means to you. No. And I was like, Jesus. But she came and saw me. I used to run a club in Doyle's Corner. She came and saw me there, I think. She couldn't be into 1 or 2 shows, but she came to see me in 2023, host a show. And just for whatever about that, she was like, okay, like, he absolutely knows what he's doing here. And then literally my biggest fan now. Literally my number one fan.
Brilliant. Well, you love to see it. Mammies are your number one fan.
I agree.
Always. So talk to me about your solo show. Like, how did that, like, talk me through the experience of creating that and then going to Edinburgh and doing it. Like, how was that?
It was quite a daunting thing actually writing the show because I had like kind of lots of different jokes and I had the hour's worth of material, but it's kind of like, okay, how do I put this all in order? Like, I kind of like drafting and going like almost putting a script together, which is so strange because like obviously, you know, we write our jokes down, but it was so strange coming up with like an actual formulaic script of like I have to put this here and say this here and this links into this. Now, one thing about kind of, you know, transition between jokes, it's something that comedians need to work on. But for me, it was a case of I kind of get away with it with the magic because, you know, I can be talking about one thing, do a trick, then go to something completely different and not kind of have to segue it as much. So, yeah, that was quite an interesting one to do. Like, it was kind of putting all the stuff together and seeing what works where and stuff, and then kind of stressing like, oh God, like, is it long enough? Is it this or is it that? But in terms of bringing it to Edinburgh Fringe, I'd had a lot of kind of practice with it because I'd done it around Ireland a bit. Like, obviously, like I said, I'd done it in Mullingar, I'd done it in Cork. I think I'd done it in Galway before that as well, but I'd also done a couple of festivals. Like, with Gigging It Up, I brought it to the Glasgow Comedy Festival.
Oh, cool.
And then also I was at the Brighton Fringe Festival as well. So when I got to Edinburgh, like, it was so ready, I suppose, in the sense that I'd done it so many times that I knew it. But it was so strange doing it in Edinburgh because I had a 12-day run of the solo show. So I think it was from like the 14th to the 25th of August, like half 2 each day. So I just bang, 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 like 12 days in a row. So by the end of that 12-day run, it was so tight, if that makes sense. Because I was just so used to doing it. It was just like such muscle memory that I was like, I used to have like a cheat sheet that I'd look and be like, what comes next? But by like the last 3-4 days, I was like, I literally know what's coming next. It was like bang, bang, bang. It was just kind of such a rhythm I was in then.
Yeah, and you sold out a couple of shows.
I did.
A decent amount. I remember seeing the Instagram stories. You seemed like you were having the best time.
The best. Like, and it was very forced. Like, you know, with my brand of comedy, like, it's all clean. So I was able to market it towards kids as well because you see some parents with kids walking around like, oh, we need a show. And I was like, well, come to my show. It's completely clean. There's no swearing, whatever. Like, it's nothing blue and it's all just a bit of fun. And there's magic. The kids are like, magic? I'm like, yes, there is. But there was I always remember there was one kid I was chatting to with her parents and I was saying about the show and she was like, oh, if I come to your show, can I be your assistant? I was like, yeah, but sit right up the front. Right. And then as soon as I needed a volunteer, she kind of looks at me and she's like, we have a deal. I was like, we do have a deal. Come on and volunteer. But again, like, back to my favorite ever show was my second last solo show because I was fortunate to have 3 amazing support acts. I had, first few days I had Bill Connery, then I had Jack McKenna for a few days, then I had Stephen Robert Walters for a few days, and they were all great kind of to warm the crowd up.
They're great lads.
Oh, they're brilliant. But the second last show I had, Stephen Robert Walters was there, and again, back to my mother, she surprised me and came to Edinburgh to see my show, and I know, she's just the best. But then and my cousins were at that show too, but whatever about it was, we had sellout show, but for some reason that was the best crowd I ever had. Like, they were so just everything I was doing, they were going mad for everything. They were just going really into it, and just I was just really on form. So that show really stands out for me because it was just such a cool day. Like, you know, my family were there, and then, like, you know, people were there, and just everything was just going well. And I was like, that's the best I've ever done. I come off stage and was like, that felt like 5 minutes, and like everything just hit really well. And that one stood out. But that was like my peak performance that I was just most happiest with.
Amazing. Oh, I can't imagine how that felt. That
Great.
sounds magic.
It was so great.
Speaking of magic, so just so you all know, for my Patreon subscribers, we're gonna after this, we're gonna maybe do a little bit of magic over on Patreon. So if you're not over there, what are you doing? What are you doing? Thank you. Anyways, so let's talk about the future. So you have a couple of like really exciting things happening in the future.
I do. As we're recording this podcast now, I have the solo show Magic Mike in Copenhagen in a couple of weeks' time, and I also have it in Glasgow in a couple of weeks' time as well, which should be fun. And yeah, the Copenhagen thing, I'm working with a guy called Ira over there, who I'm really excited to work with. I met Ira a few times in Edinburgh, a really, really great guy. And yeah, never been to Copenhagen, so super excited for that. And then Glasgow, working again with Gigging It Up in a place called The Griffins. Anybody in Glasgow listening to this, if it's out before the 23rd of November, please come to The Griffin, check it out. It's going to be fun. And then plan next year's, I don't know, because like I've got kind of opportunities to do more work in the UK, and I'm planning to do more festivals. And I think next year I'm hopefully going to be planning the full run of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. It sounds daunting, but I want to take it on. It's so much fun over there.
Absolutely. Wow. If anybody can do it, it's you. Absolutely.
You.
Okay, so we're getting to the end of the episode. Are we not? I saw you move your hand. I don't know. Well, where are we?
Oh, we have time. Don't worry.
Oh, great. Okay, brilliant. So let's talk about people. I saw him with his hand. He nodded at me, listener. So that was, I was like, this is going really, really fast.
I'm just picturing, I'm like, we're getting to the end of the episode. We've loads of, no, we're getting to the end of the episode.
Let's talk about people who in this space who inspire you. So we mentioned Kigo earlier, but who is the people, like, because your brand of comedy is so specific.
Yeah.
Who is inspiring you in this space?
Well, the big inspiration for me was Tommy Cooper as a kid, because like my granddad had VHS tape. Some listeners are going to be like, "What the heck is that?" That's where films and programs used to live. On one, and if you wanted to watch one, you had to actually change the VHS tape. But I watched that as a kid and just kind of loved that style of comedy because it was just fun and it was kind of silly. And then like he's like my main inspiration like for that type of stuff, because like I just love that type of old school kind of just clean kind of comedy. Don't get me wrong, I love like dark humor and stuff like that as well. I love all kind of types of comedy, but just that it's so niche and no one seems to be doing like the clean cut kind of magic kind of old school stuff anymore. But in terms of on the scene, so many people to name. Like there's so many people over the years. Like I'm a massive fan of, like, I work with Jack McKenna all the time. Like I love working with him. He's getting better and better and better, and I think he's going to bring a solo show to Edinburgh next year, and he's just brilliant. Like Betsy Spears, another one, as you know. Betsy's just wonderful. She was actually the first ever support act I had for my solo show, and I did Glasgow Comedy Festival with her back in 2023, and that was just so much fun as well. There's Gary Lynch who's around. Gary's always great. I think Gary's the most underrated comedian that I've ever seen. And then a couple of my friends are getting back into comedy now, like, you know, Bix O'Melancholy, Grace Lawler. They hadn't been gigging much because they've been busy throughout the years, but they're back in with it now, and I'm delighted to see them back in particular. Like, I love those guys. And then, like, you know, you got Ross, like I said, down in Mullingar, giving me so much opportunity. There's Ray Murphy down in Cork, great guy. And then there's so many guys in around the scene that are kind of, you know, up and coming. You know, like Stephen Robert Walters is great like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many great guys. And if you want to go further afield, you know, the guys in the UK, like, you know, Mark Robertson booking, gigging it up. And one particular guy I love is a guy called Frank Sinanzi. I've seen him in Edinburgh a couple of times. He's coming over now to do Mullingar soon, so I can't wait to have him. Just such a unique, funny act, and just genuinely good guy as well.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a proper plug for y'all. So talk to me about, stop moving your hand. Stop moving your hand. No.
Sit perfectly still. This is the behind the curtains bit, guys.
Because for the behind the curtain bit, we have this thing where T will put up his hand and show me 5 when I have 5 minutes left. And so I just keep around the corner of my eye, because when I'm looking directly at you, I only see it like a shadow. When he moves his hand, I feel like it's time, but it's not. Anyway.
It kind of like that thing. He's not going 5. He's kind of going like, come off. Stop him.
Stop. So we've talked about people we love, and we talked about stuff that you've done, but what we haven't talked about is running a comedy club.
Yes.
How do you get that opportunity, and like what is stuff about that people might not know? Because it seems like, oh, you can just put your friends on. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but I feel like it's a lot more stressful than maybe it might come across. It
is kind of stressful. Like, I suppose I've been fortunate with comedy clubs that I've run. How many have I run? I used to run the Byrne Shot and Dulles Corner. At the moment, I'm running Lucan, Mullingar. Dundrum is one that's coming up now in PYE.
That's a lot.
And then Cherry Tree and Walks, we did a show. So that's kind of 6 in total. But I suppose I've been fortunate with most of those in the sense that I was asked to do a few of them, like, the Cherry Tree and then Dundrum and then Dulles Corner. They kind of approached me with comedy, which is quite nice. And it's a different kind of stress because, like, obviously getting out and doing comedy, getting booked and stuff like that, it's a case of you go out, you just kind of show up, do your show, and it's fun, you go and do your set. But in terms of actually running the club, it's like kind of picking a line. I was associated like almost being a football manager. Like I'm picking my lineup and my team and like deciding where everybody goes in the order. It's like deciding what play to use, and it comes with its different kind of stress because, like, if we're having a bad month, the kind of ticket sales aren't there, if we're not selling around, I'm kind of like, that's on me. It's my job to promote the show, it's my job to book it. And I know you mentioned kind of booking friends, so now your first night you might obviously go with people who and you're like, okay, I know they're going to do a good job, exactly. But as it goes on, like, I'd pride myself a lot, especially when I was running Dulles Corner for a while. I'd always book different comedians for different shows because there's so many people out there, I think, that deserve opportunities because, sometimes, like, I've heard this from punters too, they go to see shows and it's kind of the same people all the time, and they're like, okay, well, they went one weekend and the next weekend it was the same people. So for me, it's all so important to give so many people an equal opportunity and so many people, kind of work. There's great people out there, and that's particularly in Mullingar. I always try and book so many different people as I can, like, because for me, Mullingar, it's weekly, and I'm like, everybody come down here, everybody's welcome, and everybody can just come perform because, I think it should be for everybody to kind of express themselves and do their job and stuff like that. And I think it's so important to have that many different people. Like, you have your reliable acts that you might need, for a launch night, but then, like, and try and book them and back, when they can, it makes sense to filter them back in. But it's so important to make sure everyone gets an opportunity and everybody gets a chance to express themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's been, when you're saying you're choosing different people, who's been somebody that you gave an opportunity to that, like, really, like, wowed you?
Somebody I gave an opportunity to wow me. Let me think. Because there's so many great comedians out there as well. I think that, I mentioned Stephen, he's brand new, and, when he was coming up and stuff, it was great to see. But it's, when I run Mullingar, because I book, like, different people weekly, and there's a young guy down there called Bly Jones, only 18. Like, he says, can I do 5 minutes? Come up and did great. And even last night we had a show down there, the guy called Robbie Fahey messaged me for a gig, hadn't seen him before, and I was just like, okay, well, like, really good. Like, I love when I haven't seen somebody, and I'm just kind of like, Jesus, that's great. And now Big So Melly kind of getting back into it, like, because Big So is so unique in the sense that he gets up and every time I see him it's a different set. Every time I see him I'm just kind of like, I don't know what he's going to do, I don't know what he's going to say, but I cannot wait to strap in and see it. So, like, they're guys that have really done good, but I'm sure if I sat down and looked back at my kind of Rolodex people I've booked, I was like, that person. But it's so nice kind of seeing different acts like that and just being like, Jesus, like, where have you been? I haven't seen you yet. This is great.
But that's the thing about, like, when you come off this podcast, you'll go home and be like, oh, I should have said this person, I should have said, you're never going to remember everybody on the spot. But it is something so unique about, well, maybe not unique, but unique about comedy specifically is that you have the opportunities to find these, like, hidden gems, like, immediately. Like, all it takes is a text to say, can I do 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, and then suddenly you have somebody that's, like, been waiting in the shadows that has this massive talent, and there's something really, really good about being able to platform those. You know what I mean? I
just want to come to me there. I mentioned Gary Lynch before because I had worked with Gary years ago, but I hadn't seen him in like 3-4 years, and I was in the Haypenny one night and he was performing there, and I was like, oh yeah, Gary, I haven't seen him. And I watched his set and I was like, Jesus Christ, why haven't I been booking this guy? He's so funny.
He's so funny.
So from there, he was just one of my go-to guys. Like, Gary, like, you're so underrated, you're so talented, like, please do more work with me. Like, but it's so nice when you see, like, somebody you hadn't seen, like, in a while, you're like, God, what a guy, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Anyway, so if there was somebody out there, let's say, who was hoping to who maybe might be into magic, might be interested in this kind of comedy thing, what advice would you give that person, like, about getting started?
My advice to get started would be just go for it. Like, I mean, it's a case of, it's always going to be a daunting thing, it's always going to be a scary thing, but just go and just go out there. Like, I mean, there's any comedians listening to this, and if you're based around and want to do comedy, message me in the Columbia Comedy Club. I'll have you on in Mullingar, no problem. Like I said, I want to book people there. I want to keep building and give people opportunity because they gave me an opportunity, and I always appreciate them for it. So, like, I mean, just, going. Like, I mean, there's anybody starting out that wants advice or is kind of saying, what should I do with this or that? Message me on Instagram. Like, I'm a pretty accessible guy. I'm always happy to help people out. Like, the Instagram is alex.j.byrne. See that, plugging that way early in the show. I'm not sure we're going to do the end. We're plugging it now.
No, I have everything into Scrippy, so don't worry about it too much.
But just, like, yeah, just go for it and just go out and do it because, you want to do it. You want to express it, and you want it to be fun. And, if it's something you want to create, go out, and if other people like it, that's just a bonus, I guess, then as well.
Yeah, and this might be a stupid question, but like your magic kit, is that something you buy or something you create or?
Bit of both. Like if there's some tricks where like, I'll get up like kind of just basic, like, if I got a basic deck of cards, there's tricks you'll create out of that. But in terms of magic stuff as well, there is some stuff where you do kind of buy it and you kind of just learn. And my favorite one, I was in New York, I was in Manhattan, and I Googled and there was like this place called Tannen's Magic Shop, and I was like, oh, okay, it's somewhere like in Manhattan. And I went to the building, and it was like this weird kind of like office building, like it was this corridor with just like one reception desk, and I was just like, well, this can't be it. So I walked up and down the street, couldn't find, and I went into the guy and was like, Tannen's Magic Shop, and he was just like, 6th floor. I was like, okay. So I got the lift to the 6th floor, and as I went up, it was just like winding like white corridor, and it was just like all these kind of doors were like covered up with like sheets of plastic, and I was like, this is how it ends. This is literally. And I went down to the end, and I just literally found this like old school wooden kind of outside exterior magic shop, and I went in, was like, geez, and there was just magicians hanging out, and I was talking about, I might potentially be right. This was like back in April or May 2023, and I was like, I'm thinking about potentially doing a solo show. I need more tricks, and they taught me a couple of nice tricks there, and I was like, okay, let's go. So yeah, you have to kind of search them out and stuff, but it's an interesting process.
Yeah, is there like are you part of like a magic community or no?
Not at the moment. There's none in Ireland.
He won't
that
tell.
I'm
If he
aware of.
was, he wouldn't tell
I can't.
me.
It's like Fight Club. I can't talk about it. I've said too much.
Damn. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure to like learn more about you and your journey, and I'm so excited to see you like hit that trajectory. Like you're doing such amazing stuff, and it's such a breath of fresh air. Like I love comedy. I love going to see comedians, but it's always nice when somebody has something, a little je ne sais quoi, if you will, a little something different, and something you bring such a joy and such a light to the stage that I'm really happy to have.
Well, as I always say to people, I just do magic to cover up the fact that I'm not funny.
Okay. Well, anyways, look, we have gotten to the end of the show this time. So, speaking of plugs, can you tell people where to find you and stuff, and plug whatever you want to do?
Yeah, sure. Like the main place to find me is Instagram, alex.j.byrne. It's where like message me, like I said, for any advice if you want to start doing comedy. It's where I also promote the different clubs that I run as well. So, yeah, that's the main thing. I upload some sketches there as well. Like I've done kind of sketch comedy in the past. Was fortunate enough back last year to win. Was it last year? I think it was Best Irish Sketch at the Dublin International Comedy Film Festival for the Defective Detective sketch that I did with Jack and Betsy. And yeah, just uploading some stuff there. Myself and Jack are actually working on a short film at the moment based off sketch that we've done with our farmers Frank and Poddy. So yeah, if you want to follow the news and check out what's going on there in the comedy journey, that's the place to do so.
Brilliant. Okay, so for people on Patreon, it's time to go over to Patreon now, where we're going to be doing some magic over there. But for those who are just here to listen, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you next week with the next episode. Have a great evening. Bye.